Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and we are here for After Dark, the spiritual talk show, which is exclusive for highvibe.tv. This is where we go into awesome subjects, and we do this show on the late nights to bring you spirituality, and whether we call that the round table or whatever, make sure that you check out highvibe.tv. Of course, we got awesome apps, we got an awesome website, we got awesome exclusive content, which you can always get by subscribing, by just joining at highvibe.tv. And of course, we have an awesome event here that's going to be going on Thursday for the full moon energies that are really kind of creeping Wednesday into Thursday there. We're going to have so many awesome things. We'll be talking a little bit about it tonight, but if you want to be part of it, we are RSVPing. We are taking first come, first serve. Make sure that you check it out. The link is on the Facebook for High Vibe TV, or you can go to my Facebook, The Leo King, or my Twitter at The Leo Kingdom. You'll see the link there. Anyway, tonight we've got Abby Moneyhunt, co-founder of highvibe.tv, and we got Jax Atlantis in the house, who is our master tarot and many other masters aspects of highvibe.tv. Right. What's going on, you two?
We're cold.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so cold. Weak. I literally came in here and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And you live in Montana in the cold.
That's why I have like a very eclectic collection of scarves and capes. Yeah. Well, I didn't make it back to the hotel to get like warm clothes, and the heaters haven't come in yet, and it's really cold in the studio. Right?
And Jackson, were you just living in Boston?
Yeah. Well, you know, here's what helps, Abby.
And you're from Oregon?
I know, but it's not what you think. Listen, I acclimate very quickly, and so I got here. California was sunny, and then a few minutes later, it starts raining and getting all dark all the time. And so I don't know what's up with that. But what helps if you sit crisscross applesauce is it like keeps all the temperature here.
Well, I got these old cappy rising creaky bones that don't.
Well, you heard it here first.
I don't do well with the cold. I mean, this is actually a very interesting segue. Has nothing to do about spirituality, actually, but just by date-wise it does. December 10th for me is always a very weird day, because it was the day I left for boot camp.
Oh.
Okay? And so, it's like Jax, but flipped. Sunny, Southern California boy my whole life. On a plane, December 10th, 2002, to Chicago, to Great Lakes, Illinois, where I am going to be marching in the snow and negative 20 wind chill outside more than 6 times a day. They don't care if it's the worst blizzard or you march in the snow. And that was an adjustment, but I didn't complain.
You didn't?
No.
I
was a leader. I wasn't allowed to complain.
I don't know if I believe that. Do you guys believe that?
No, seriously. Like, if you complain, you were dropping down and doing 100, 200, 300 push-ups. Or if people complain, they throw you into an old barracks where you literally go and you do push-ups and sit-ups until the first person throws up out of 80 people. People don't know about that, about boot camp. Like, it's no joke. It's not like, oh, I don't feel well. Okay, everybody, because he doesn't or she doesn't feel well, is going to pay for that. And then they'll have that person watch.
Oh, I don't like that.
Maybe that's why I'm such a, I could be,
heart.
that's why maybe I could be kind of a hard ass sometimes. But, we are on the last full moon of the decade. Maybe I'll change my ways because, actually, that was last decade. I was in boot camp. But
isn't that weird that it's been a decade?
What were you doing coming into 2010, like New Year's Eve 2010? And what were you feeling?
Oh, I was going through a heartbreak. Yeah, I just ended a relationship.
Yeah, what's weird is I actually remember that. I really remember when the night 2010 started, and I was looking at a friend, and I was like, I don't know how to describe it or like what it is, but it feels like something about this year is going to be extremely special. And that was like 2 years before things started really radically changing spiritually for me in my life. And so it's actually really funny looking back at that. I remember I was drinking like 3 bottles of like sake or something like that. It was a crazy night, but yeah. Maybe that's why 2010
Do you know
felt
what
crazy.
I just realized? I've not called myself in a relationship since then.
Dun,
That
dun,
is a-
dun. See, we're
Over,
getting deep
out.
now tonight.
Healing.
I think people have to pay attention to,
Whoa.
there's an old superstition
Okay.
of who you spend New Year's Eve with.
Yeah.
That energy of the people around you, the person you're with, goes into that year.
I'm usually alone.
Well, we're going
We'll have to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent several New Year's alone.
Huh.
Isn't that wild? I've been like a little hermit.
Well, it's okay.
Hmm.
I was at a warehouse party with Christopher Witecki, my old mentor, a girl named Kristen Ryder. And we went to this random warehouse party, and Chris and I were, there were some major astrological events going on, like Jupiter and Uranus were coming together, and Jupiter and Saturn in opposition were coming and stuff like that. So it was like my crazy astrologer self was already doing it all the time and was like, oh my gosh, what's Jupiter opposed Saturn going to mean? We're 10 years in the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of 2000. That was in my head. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, Jupiter and Saturn are meeting up here in 2020 to complete the 20-year cycle that they met in Taurus, but in Aquarius. So there's this like, for me though, this is different because I feel that even though I knew this decade would be the biggest spiritual revolution decade, and I knew it was going to be exciting, there's something to say that we still haven't reached some sort of major like whoa in this decade. I think there was a major whoa as far as like spirituality concerns, and it might feel like it, but the real big whoa is this decade.
Yeah. It feels like it's not going to be subtle in 2020, like kicking off. To me, it's always felt like the visions and imagery that I always get. It's always a tidal wave. It's like a tidal wave of awakening psychic energy.
Wow, it must be amazing to be in your consciousness of tidal waves.
Yeah.
I better have my jet ski with me.
Yeah, seriously.
Get away from that thing.
I love how you see stuff like that. That's one thing really cool about Jax.
Mm-hmm.
Like he sees and like can taste like the energy, so he can give like a really accurate description.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Clairgustance is something that we were all talking about the other day. Like clairgustance and clairsalience are almost never talked about, like the psychic olfactory sense and the psychic taste. And it's weird to talk about because like taste is the most intimate of the senses. Like, I mean, you could argue touch is more, but I mean, taste, basically you have to like open up the gates of your teeth to allow your vulnerability to show, like when you're, talking or tasting something. And
is that why dinosaurs constantly were going, ah?
That's exactly why. That's why snakes do it to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously?
I assume so. I mean, since they're connected, yeah. I mean, I guess I can't speak as some sort of reptile. I'm not a degree in reptiles.
You know me, I have no problem playing reptile. I like it.
But
I never thought about that.
I think just people thinking about that, though, just being conscientious about that is something that might change their intuition. It might change their psychic abilities, because a lot of people assume there's just clairvoyance and clairaudience. Or like maybe like claircognizance has become like a really popular buzzword, but like the more you understand like clairtangency of the psychic touch and clairsalience and clairgustance, like just knowing that they exist means you're more open to potentially receiving or giving that energy.
I think you should add that to your name somewhere. Clairgustance.
Jax Clairgustance Atlantis.
Yeah.
I'd be the only person with that name, that's for sure.
Because I think a lot of people would be like, I've never heard that term. I bet you there's a lot of people who are watching this like, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it until I heard him say it.
Well,
I hadn't heard of a bunch of those clairs.
I'm making you taste it, Abby.
He's making you taste it. But it's so funny. So full moon in Gemini. Gemini is the mind. So it's interesting because we associate the mind, of course, with communication or thought or even audio, right?
Yeah.
But there is something to say that really the mind is kind of the central, operating system of our conscious selves and bodies, and also how we process all the data too. And this is a weird full moon in a way because it's coming at a time where Venus is going to be with this Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It's going to be smushed right in between. And so it's like the biggest choices in our life with relationships and with projects are really peaking on this full moon. And then I've been looking at the astrology afterwards, and it's kind of like after that point, you pretty much like kind of know. So there's a lot of like full revealing this week. Like, this is it. Like, you know, and then after that, it's kind of like they're major steps, but they're, I don't know, maybe somebody can try and help fill me in their own perspective better.
I was looking at the Galactic Code for it because it's, to me, it's so precious what's happening. I mean, it's precious what's happening, in my opinion. And I want to look at the code so I don't get it wrong. So what happens, we talked last week how we were going into this portal, you know, where the veils were really thin. And we were getting all this information on how we could empower ourselves. And then what the big switch, it happens on, let me see which day it is. Like, it's just kind of shocking how all of a sudden it goes from empowering ourselves to where we're empowering other people with our message, but we're still in that portal. And so the beautiful thing about it is we're given every single tool that we need to find the last glimpses of love and self.
Is that an app?
So it is an app. Yeah, it's like it's called 3D Can, I think. I'll look up the exact name. So look how it's got, so we've got December, today's the 10th, right? See how it says how I can best empower myself. And then it goes to the 11th. We're still empowering ourselves, but we're at this phase of the purest essence of what a human is. And we're guided with a direction that is, it's destiny. I mean, this is like where we're going to get these major visions of what the destiny of even humanity could be. And then it switches to, on the 12th, it goes to Skywalker, which is that outer worldly wisdom. And it's like the last touch that we get of an otherworldly force. Before then, we switch into how can I extend my equality to others? That happens on the 13th, which is the day after the full moon. And it comes with a wizard, a double wizard, which is like the most
magical. Isn't that the 13-year cycle we're in anyway?
Yeah, the difference is that it's not the magnetic wizard, it's the spectral wizard, which means that at that point, you know, like after that 12th, after that full moon, we have the magic to be able to convert anything. And then we pop, and then we have like 3 or 4 days of it. On the 16th, we come out of the portal.
That's funny. That's when the deep astrology ended, is the 16th.
Right.
And that's when I'm kind of like, well, at this point, folks,
and then
there's a little bit of
back on the earth.
That's all, folks. And as far as like, just wait and see what that show is going to be like. Instead of, you know, that's what's pretty crazy. And, you know.
That's why I was telling you the other day where it's like, we've got this opportunity right now to completely soak in, like breathe in really deep these moments of empowerment that you do feel, or like these glimpses, and know that it's not about this giant rush. A lot of the things that we see are like fortune telling but it's like foretelling what's to come. And so it's like we do feel squeezed, or we feel like we have to do everything like right now. It's like that pressure. But those glimpses are just of things that are going to be unfolding over a period of time.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that think that there's a problem with the fact that they feel emotionally overwhelmed right now. And it's actually not a problem. If you're emotionally overwhelmed, it's because there's a lot going on right now. And so it's really important to like let that flow naturally and not to try and restrict that.
Right.
Or not to be basically so militant on yourself that you're suggesting that because you're overwhelmed that you're not paying attention. It's like you're overwhelmed because you're so serious about getting on the boat, you know?
I think that's why we feel that feeling of like there's so much to do. You know, like
right.
We've watched several people even like while we're preparing for the event, and there is a lot going on. But I think it feels a little bit more than what it really is.
Yes, but it is something to say that all these planets are squishing, all of them.
Yeah.
And when that happens in astrology, you are squished into a box. And you do want to at least take some sort of action
Definitely.
to give yourself the most breathing room instead of when this thing squishes exponentially in the weeks to come with the eclipse. So it's kind of like this full moon is positive in the sense that there's, not to say there's a lot of negative energies around, but it's like this is kind of one of the higher fire, air, positive outlook and movability and flexibility left. There's not a lot of flexibility going to be around at all. If you look at when we come into Capricorn and when we come into the eclipse in 2 weeks, zero except for Neptune, but it's not that flexible because there's no actual physical body energies and flexibility. Mars will be in Sag trying to open up, but Saturn's ruling and everything is in kind of concrete. So I mean,
not like emotional overwhelm instead of taking action.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just like those who are taking action, but they also feel overwhelmed. And then by rejecting that emotion, by rejecting that feeling, it's almost like they start to cloud their vision and they might end up like getting to the wrong dock at the last minute. So it's like, it's really important to be okay with yourself right now and to let yourself feel whatever it is you're feeling and to not take it as a sign of weakness because like you're about to gear up for essentially like, you know, a major battle or like a major transition. And so there's like a lot of release that needs to happen right before that. And it's just important not to distract yourself out of like, you know, action and everything. Like,
yeah, Mars trines Neptune this week, which to me is like this is a message week of what to do.
yeah.
So it's like receive the message, and then the right. I said it a lot this week, or for this show tonight is the writing's on the wall. So I don't think I just think that there is something to say about like, and this is something I'm having a hard time with as an astrologer still, is when it gets just so clamped up. It's like it reminds me so funny about Skywalker and Star Wars is coming out, the last one, ironically, before the Saturn Pluto thing. There's something to say in the first one in episode 4 when they're in the trash compactor and they're almost right. Think of it like a trash compactor. So the longer you do wait, the more funneled it gets. And I was watching a lot of Terrence McKenna last night about time wave zero and the compression of time. And so the spinning effect of compression of time, right? Like he died before 2012 and he died, so nobody's doing it post 2012. He only got us prepared to show us the compression from 4,500 years to the last 384 days before December 21st, 2012, then the last 68 days before 2012 and how they compress like that, then the last 6 days before, and then the last 23 hours before, and then, right? Now imagine that from the last 8 years of all of that compressing on top of this. And so these portals here, like this full moon is another one of those compressions. But after that, now it compresses and on the eclipse stuff and just goes, and it just goes, so it's kind of one of those, and he always said it's like tightening of time, like the spiral. It's like tightening like a rope, around I guess you could say like if you took like a piece of wood, right? It's a little bit like a spring, like, and it's getting really, and he says it's a little chaotic, right? It starts going, and it's like, whoa. And he was actually correctamundo on the money, especially with CERN in 2012 and all the stuff. And I don't think he really knew where it was going to go after that point. Because when you're converging all of human history that we know of and all these moments into one, it just becomes the Renaissance, World War II energy, and as an astrologer, I see it that way too. So it's kind of like, well, this one's weird because coming into 2020 of Neptune where the Civil War was and the witch trials, You have Pluto, where the Revolutionary War was preparing with the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party. And then you get Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn, which is the Renaissance. And then you get the Black Plague / that after. But then you get to the 1282, where you get the Dark Ages and the end. And ironically, this week is Friday the 13th, which is defined by the Templar Knights being murdered. So there's something to say about all those energies. And then Uranus and Taurus is the build up to World War II for America to enter into it, and also watching, the government switch so erratically and the alliances all crazy. So, it's like one of those where it's like, wow, all that's happening at the same time. It's like, ooh.
No, I can't even talk. No.
No.
It is really interesting, because I know that you are very deep when you look at this stuff. It's very awesome being able to hang around you to hear the analogies of time and to see how they correlate to now. It really makes me wonder. I know we talked about the video games a little bit last week. There's parts of me that wonder if that's those games that the kids are playing, where it's just like they're in battle, where it would make them not even think twice about saying, okay, I'm going to go into battle. It makes me wonder what kind of programming is going on there, because it's either that there's a world war that's going on between these 20 million kids that are playing, or there's a way to get them into, like this revolutionary mindset of how to fight a battle.
I actually think the opposite, being going through boot camp and doing it was, I didn't want to play the game. I wanted to do it in real life.
Right.
And there wasn't enough of that around. And I noticed today it's like, well, it's more of like, I've got the cool game chair. I've got the good sound. I've got the good graphics. Right? So it's kind of this more like, I'm really comfortable and I don't have to deal with reality. I don't want to have to put on my uniform and my boots, and I got to get up at 4 a.m. and get out in the cold and put everything on and get on the front lines and cock my M16 and load it. And
if they added that to video games, like no one would play them.
No.
Like if they added like even you just...
So it's almost like, I think, doing the opposite. It's demasculizing.
So do you think it'll make them not want to fight?
Correct, yeah. I mean, like, it's a lot different from a video game than real life, when you have to build brotherhood in person, right? And sisterhood, because there are men and women in the military. But there's that whole... there, and then like I brought up the punishment of like, if somebody messes up, that person watches everybody get in trouble so that person doesn't mess up again. Whereas like in video games, it's like I died, it's no big deal. I died.
They just come back to life.
How many times have people died in video games now? And then just like the old video games, you had only 3 lives in Super Mario Brothers, and you had to do a lot to get a star, to get an extra life, like it was like, oh my God, a star, run after that motherfucker, so I could play Koopa in the end.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I was just laughing at that. Go on.
Well, after watching you play your little virtual reality,
what do you mean? We put you into virtual reality.
I mean, I was in like the Zen places of it. But like when you're in that you're in that battle, and it's like the workout and the adrenaline is rushing, and it's like, and these kids are getting like this camaraderie through, like, it's like a network of people that they've never met, but they talk to them every day, like they FaceTime. It's all like this virtual reality that I don't understand how it fits into this time frame. But it's in my awareness Neptune. So strong.
It's Neptune.
Because of seeing so many do it.
It's Neptune. So then people like virtual reality. It's the same way as media reality, right?
Yeah.
That like the perception of what we see on television about the news, about what's happening, is not what probably the impeachment hearing smells like or
tastes like
when you're in the room, right? Yeah. like, it looks like, oh, it's so official. But when you look at a side shot, you're like, I've been to the Capitol building. Those are small rooms.
Yeah.
And they are tight up in there. And why do you think they have all the people in there, all the press is like leaning down? Because like that's how high the table is. It looks like they're up on this big mezzanine and over them and and down on the witnesses. It's like they're like right there, So, as somebody in the military that did a lot of combat, as far as not in battle, but as far as training, it's a lot different when they are down your neck throwing scenarios and how fast you have to load your gun and how you have to shoot and aim and hit your target and how well that you know how to load your gun and how well that you know how to take care of it and how well you know how to do all those things. And we did bomb searches in the middle of the night. They'd wake you up at 2 a.m. Beep, 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 find the bomb. You got 20 minutes. And if you don't, then we are going to be paying for it all night in push-ups and sit-ups and sweat. I remember I had this chief, and he was coming on his way out, my drill instructor, and he'd be like, all right, Park Palmer, you're going to make him sit in here, and we're going to make this place sweat. See how cold it is outside? See all that snow? I want to see the snow melt off all the windows in here. If I don't see the snow melting off all the windows in here, nobody's going home till that snow melts off those windows. That's how hot it needs to get up in here tonight. I'm like, so he's like, I don't care if you're sweating all night. You need to keep just doing push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks and just keep doing all three in a row, and then a jumping jack, and then and I was at like 3 a.m. when we couldn't find the bomb, and I got in trouble, so I had to do that, and we were there till 0700, 7 a.m, no sleep, and then it was like, oh, we gotta go get chow now. At least that it looks like the sun helped you out there, Palmer.
Oh God.
Why do you think you went through that whole experience?
Oh, I wanted to. Personally, I thought that college was just, I did not like school. So I was looking at the clock every second at school. Like 45 seconds felt like 45 hours. I'd literally watch that clock. And I would even tell the teacher, like, your clock is off a little bit, because I was And then I had some of those teachers that would, even if the bells went off, and Craig went to the same high school as us. We didn't have a bell. We had a ding, 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 ding. So it was so annoying. So, it's like it would go off, and then the teacher would be like, no, hold on. My clock says this. Those 2 minutes.
Longest 2 minutes ever.
Nah. I only played for sport. I only went to school for sports. But it was like, I just felt like, and then, so my mom's like, if you're going to live at this house, you got to be in college or you got to go get a job. Well, I knew at 16 I wasn't going to college. So when I went to go pick my classes, I said, I just need only classes that are going to make me graduate. No college classes. So I didn't take algebra 2. I didn't take geometry. I didn't take trig. I didn't take chemistry. I didn't take any of those things. I took the dumbest stuff like senior math with a Playboy model teacher from 1981 who would say, all right, kids, get out a newspaper and find a bar graph and describe it to me in a sentence. That was my senior year of math. So ironically, I do math all the time. But so I couldn't go to college unless it was basically community college general, because I had no classes, and then I would have had to retake what I should have taken in high school in college. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go back to high school to be in college, because that's the way college works. There's requirements of classes, and I purposely set myself up. So then when I went to the job market, I worked for the Gallup poll.
Oh yeah.
Okay. For one day. I'm talking to all these people like, yes, I'm here with Gallup, which I'd like to get the poll on. Do you eat Nabisco, or do you like Oreos, or do you like what? Hang up, and then it's like, if you don't get people to talk more than a minute, you're not going to get paid. I'm like, and then that's when I realized, I'm like, the military is going to make me a man, give me money. I was able to get a car right away, because you get a car loan because you have a Navy Federal Credit Union and you're getting paid, and you get a bonus.
Wow.
So at 18, you become a man, you have a car, and you have your own place, and you have 12 grand in your pocket, and you're getting paid, and the food's free. And the cigarettes are $2 at the commissary.
It's appealing, huh?
It was very appealing.
It sucks you in when...
And to be honest with you, it because I was in sports and because I was the captain of the water polo team and all that stuff, it was like going to the military was like continuing that feeling of brotherhood and leadership and being physical. And it was great until I partied too hard.
Then you still had your little rebel side.
Yeah. But you know that, speaking of past lives, it's like, yeah, it was every life has had military and past lives for me. So it was like, I had to go through it, and I finally cleared my past life military karma with actually going through it and getting out early and not going through. And I went in 2002, December 10th, got out February 20th, 2003. We went and bombed Afghanistan while I was in, and did the whole operation mission accomplished. So I watched in boot camp. That was the only thing I ever got to watch for television for 1 second. Was mission was accomplished, but then the military already knew, because they told us, you're not in normal military boot camp anymore. This is war boot camp. So I went to war boot camp opposed to normal military boot camp. That's why it was a little bit more extreme in bombs and all that. And I was in during the war. So 2003 when I was in was gnarly. And that was during the whole Colin Powell coming up, and now we're going to Iraq. So in the middle of a wartime, I'm like, it just didn't, I didn't even realize I was not conscious, I was just like, something feels off. I don't know what it is. And that's why I went in and how I got out.
I have so much compassion. I've never experienced any of that stuff, but I've seen the effects, like in so many people of being in those situations, like the ones that did fight, even the ones that went through boot camp, because of all they go through harsh stuff.
Oh, you see and people getting kicked out like every couple days. Somebody doesn't make it and they just get, their bunk's gone. Like
I don't like it. I don't like it.
To see grown men like cry like hardcore, and then if you have to do the brotherhood thing, but they kind of build you down first and kind of have you have to kind of egg that person on first until you build the brotherhood that you have been an actual U.S. military official person, like you have graduated, then the brotherhood thing kind of starts. Because why are you going to be a brotherhood to somebody who hasn't proved yet that they're part of it yet? That's the gnarly part.
Right.
That's the part I don't think people are processing, is like there's a little bit of competition first and who is going to make it and who is not kind of energy. I thrive in that though.
Yeah.
Which is very Capricornian and Jupiter Capricorn, which is why I have a hard time telling people about this stuff. Like, I think that you guys are both right though, because I think that we all need to take this time and really just, process it. But I think that it's also like setting intention with it to do something with whatever comes. Like not just like, well, I don't know, and when it does show up, I'm not going to do anything, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like it's like, know that the gates are very, I like using the time compression. It's almost like when we compress like a song into an MP3 back in the day, like it's getting really close to being complete, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people hear your message and sometimes they think of it like it's like a condemnation, like something bad is going to happen to them. And it's like, it's more of a challenge. It's just a very direct challenge. It's like, will you take on the challenge? Because for me, different people need different messages in different ways. But for me, because of the life that I had lived, like the thing that really woke me up, the thing that really changed me was having someone be extremely direct with me. and very like, like very bold as far as the message and the way they presented it, because of how much time I'd spent in the comfort of other people trying to be nice and being like very gentle about everything and very soft with everything. And it required someone being extremely direct before I was able to really go through a lot of spiritual changes myself, because it's a form of respect when you go hard on someone. You're suggesting that they have what it takes to make it through that and that they can handle it. And so like, and a lot of people think of that as like, no, you're just being like, like brash or whatever. It's like, it's a form of love. Like you love someone when you hold them accountable. You love someone when you challenge them to step up into something. And it's like, there's a place for softness, and I think there's definitely a place for hardness as well.
Well, that's where we get the term in astrology, malefic planets and benefic. These are malefic times, malefic energies coming together. So what that means, if we put it into context that I love how you just put it, is this makes for a better Disney movie, because a Disney movie without a malefic enemy is boring. Like Fantasia.
Yeah.
I can't watch Fantasia. I tried many times. Never made it through the whole thing. Have you ever made it through Fantasia?
I never watched it.
That was when Walt combined like a bunch of his characters at the time with music, and kind of did like a theatrical, like cartoon musical, like
I know of it. I never saw that.
See, nobody ever saw it because it was too benefic.
Right? And I was just thinking about trying to imagine Snow White without the poison apple.
Right?
Like that'd be weird. It'd be just sort
Sleeping
of more of
Beauty without Maleficent, the queen, the witch that throws the curse on her by the prick of on her 16th birthday from the spinning wheel.
Then it would have just been Beauty.
It just would have been Beauty and just those three fairy godmothers the whole movie, without like some sort of protective element, but like just kind of like being really annoying. Like, oh, it's all good. Look at how you look today. It reminds me of Barbie and Ken. There's never anything that happens to Barbie and Ken, right?
There's a couple SNL skits that play with that idea, where essentially it's like there's like a panel of people interviewing to represent the Instagram for Barbie and for Ken, and they put this really dark spin on it, and it's actually really funny. But
yeah, I think they copied. It's called Couple Things on YouTube. It's hilarious. They take Barbie and Ken dolls, and they actually throw real life gnarly couple scenarios.
Oh my god,
it's amazing.
And I'll have to look that up. That sounds
Couple Things.
It is really funny.
But I think so. That's the beautiful thing, though, is like without malefic energy, because malefics teach us the greatest lesson. They're just challenging lessons, but they're the ones that create the most impact. Because benefic lessons are can sometimes actually go into the, this is where we get like, believe it or not, we actually get more of the sin technically through the benefics, like overindulgence, so there's that whole, this is where it's a time where it's actually more limited. So it feels more challenging because it's like, oh God, I don't have that. But it actually makes you start to see where you hold values better, you hold integrity better, you hold, taking your time on the planet more seriously than just kind of running through the motions, which kind of I think might go with the whole video game thing, kind of the misunderstanding part of like, how do you just like kind of live in this virtual world for so long and then come back to the reality and just kind of go to bed, sleep, and go back into it. There's something to say that this energy is kind of taking all these kind of areas that have been too much in excess, kind of cutting them off, right? That's why also you see politically wise, Capricorn definitely deals with more of, conservative energy. And then liberalism is much more Aquarian and much more, or even Jupiterian, right? Open. But that's why you're seeing a lot more of like this whole kind of in government going more right than left, because of the fact that everything is more like, it feels malefic to take away and not give somebody something. But there is also like, well, is there enough money for it? That's,
and it like, prioritizes strength over comfort.
Yeah, it does.
Which is, an inherently good thing. Like human beings are better off when we're strong and prepared, rather than when we're taken care of by some sort of like, communistic energy, and not even literal communism, just like, communal energy that is something that's given regardless of what you've put in there. The idea
Right.
that I could meditate and you'd become more zen and more calm is like, it's not something that works, applied in reality.
Yeah, I think that's got temporary aspects to it. These are about long term, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, are you going to come with me on my 2 years from now, my trip to whatever, and meditate with me and next to me so I can feel that way?
Right.
Right? Are you going to come to me when I go on a date, and be like, hey, Jax, make sure this date
You
goes
got
well.
it, man.
That's the whole long term look at things, where this is actually looking at the longest term stuff, and you have to, because it's a treacherous, rocky terrain, a mountain. So you just don't go, well, bring the refrigerator and bring, it's like, how do we get that up the mountain? You may break your back, so it's like, I got to be conservative, and I got to take some bars of power, or then nobody buys power bars anymore, clip bars, or, and then, I got to find stuff on the trail.
Yeah. And at the same time, the treacherous mountain's the best vantage point. It's like the best place to see everything because there's nothing else to distract you in your way. There's no trees in your way.
I think this is also where we find more love, more I think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? It's a malefic experience of her being just, her house ends up, flying in the air, leaves. I'm not in Kansas anymore. Where am I? And she's in Oz, and she has to follow the yellow brick road with nothing but Toto. At least she had Toto. But it's like she finds all these amazing things in a malefic situation and still has to go face a malefic situation, but the love and the things that she finds on that trail is everything. So it's like when we are taken away from everything that you feel, we actually get nothing but open field of what is beautiful to come.
Yeah.
Because in many ways, sometimes it's good to just kind of scrap your computer when you're like, gosh, all these files and all these things, just, right? It's kind of it works again, and I don't have all that clutter, and I don't have all those old emails from my girlfriend from 2004,
So do you think that malefic energy brings out the what is it? What's the
benefics? That's where we get benefit.
So
beneficial.
do you think that there's a percentage of humans on the planet that when they're in the malefic energy become beneficent?
Oh, 100%.
And then the others become maleficent? Is
right,
that?
because I actually think it's quite the interesting opposite. When people get too much benefic energy is when they do their most evil deeds.
King Joffrey.
Exactly.
And so that's what I'm saying, is that this is where you just kind of go, I actually think that this is a beneficial time for the fact that I'm finally getting this done and over with. So I can move into this true place of integrity, because the challenge is emotion. It's like Capricorn's not emotional because it has to make a choice not based off emotion. I think it's very hard that's why it rules business and governments. Is governments have to make choices of what programs. They can't do every program. They can't pass every bill. They can't just give away the whole Treasury Department to everybody in a way, right? Even if you did, and you find other forms of government and you go down the political science spectrum, it's kind of then you lose individual rights, or you lose the freedom of certain things, and you start getting into where it's whoa. So it's just the same thing of the production of food, right? A lot of it gets wasted.
Right.
So it's kind of if you notice now, people aren't doing that as much, right? So actually that's technically a malefic energy, not a benefic one, right? It's kind of a restriction, this is too much. If you think about America, especially in the 2000s or prior, it was just especially because Jupiter and Saturn met in Taurus, there was this kind of just we're going to run the money and run the best of everything as high as we can. Because that was right when HD TVs came out in 2010. That's what I remember. Do you remember? The end of the 2000s was HD TV.
My throat's gurgling.
Or that's I was thinking, I don't know why I thought of this, an antacid, right? When there's acid, an antacid kind of takes away the acid, even though I don't think that's the best way to handle it. But that's what Saturn and Pluto are doing to you in your life, where you are connected to something that's not on your path. There's this antacid coming in, kind of going, and we're taking that away. But it's weird because people have like this overindulgent connection to what is actually not in alignment for them. So because that's a beneficial look at things, like, oh, well, I really like want to hold on to that, but it's kind of like, but it's causing this, or it's causing that, or it's causing this, in your life. But there's that emotional element where the emotions are trumping out the smart choices.
Yeah.
And that's why astrology is Hermetic, because Hermetic deals with neutral, meaning that you make it based off the smartest choice that's good for the universe, which actually is how you connect to the heart the most, because it's like a true heart is going to do what's best for everything instead of losing yourself into emotions, which the reason why the moon is dealing always with the subconscious mind, and the subconscious is, especially like Jax can go deep into the moon card. Why are those creepy scorpion and all those things coming out of the water, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like with the moon card, it's essentially, it's a gathering, depending on which moon card you have. It's often a gathering of the creatures that are comfortable with the unknown, that live in the unknown, that live in the night, that find comfort there. The place where conscious man, of course, finds like the least pleasant, because it's the nighttime and it's like, really scary. We don't know what's out there in the jungle. We don't know what that sound was, or the cracking leaves. And so there's a way where finding peace with the nocturnal animals is a way of finding peace with our search for the unknown, our search for God, So it's like, and of course, in the moonlight, you find that creativity and that romance, and you find the things that are also dangerous. Brand new ideas are dangerous, and they're beautiful because like you can create something incredible with them. But what you find in, like the light of the sun is you'll find, truth, and you'll find these different things that can be measured and weighed there. But in the moon card, you have to step into a different perspective. You have to step into the place where you're least comfortable.
Yeah, it reminds me of Jurassic Park, the first movie, the first one. This amazing, great idea. Yeah. It would have probably been a great movie to come out now as the first one. Is this whole great idea of bringing back dinosaurs, having a park with tourists there and all that stuff. And then on the first run, when they try and they bring everybody there that just like close enough to see, it goes wrong right away. That's Saturn and Pluto.
We are very close to bringing them back too.
Right? So there's that whole moment of like, whoa, but before we're going to go get all these tourists killed, hunt millions of people possibly or whatever, like there's going to be a situation where, that's going to get tripped up and that's going to get tripped up because it's not in alignment with the universe. Like, boom, and it kind of does that. And if you follow that whole story, I mean, it does get to a point to where they literally finally do like get rid of the dinosaurs, except for just very few of them, They actually do, which is kind of crazy. But then that's how long Saturn and Pluto take. So one thing to kind of maybe give people a little bit of breathing room and understanding is that Saturn and Pluto conjunction is just the start of a long plus 30-year cycle, and it's only going to conjunct once, which it conjuncted three times in 82 and 83, because there was retrograde. Saturn went into Scorpio and then went back into Libra and conjuncted Pluto. So this is rare. It's just going to be Saturn and Pluto once, and that even makes it a little bit more powerful, just in the sense that it's like it's not going to get three passes and kind of three understandings. It's like you get one shot, and then it's in Capricorn, which is very direct as far as destiny goes and the direction of the ship. So it's like, imagine if you were in a sailboat and you knew that here comes the wind right now. Where am I going to point my sail? Because I know that the wind, when it leaves, that's what's pushing me in that direction. That's a good way to look at it. And where you'll float. So if you aim it towards Alaska, well, you better be ready for king crab fishing and crabs and wearing some cold clothes. Or if you want to aim towards the Bahamas or Hawaii, might be a little bit easier to handle that one. You know what I mean? So there's like this big wind coming to kind of pull you through, and then Saturn and Capricorn and with Pluto there is restriction. It's takeaway for a moment. It's patience. It's also the winter, right? Solstice. That's the idea of Capricorn, is that's the coldest time of the year. The sun's at its, point to where it has to now start to build back up because we've reached the longest night from a northern hemisphere perspective. So that's where these planets are meeting in the sign that deals with the coldest time. So that's no irony that they brought out Game of Thrones and the whole idea of the winter coming.
Do I look like a wildling?
But well, that's the whole thing is like they gave this whole hype up of the winter coming, and then really, okay, the winter came, and then like I thought it was going to be this dramatic big thing, and then they come, and then whatever, okay, like yeah, some of your characters die or whatever, but then like only it was a certain amount of people that fought them. Everybody else didn't. The rest of the world.
I assumed it was going to be like the last 3 seasons.
I thought they were going to come into the whole entire, like, get all the way to King's Landing.
Yeah. Maybe like halfway through the show or something like that. I thought
that's how it was going to be, like zombie apocalypse times 1,000,000. Like, they're taking blah, blah, blah. But it was like, no, they were able to stop them right there. And then it turned out to be...
Spoilers.
Not what you thought was the winter that would kill you, but it was the crazy queen who... lost it in her own rage and her own things when things actually went good. She actually went bad.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the worst characters.
Right. And that's kind of Pluto Saturn's hidden element is that's what you want to be careful of is, is like, what is going to align with you that you think is aligned? Like Queen Daenerys, like, oh, she's good. Da, 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 da. And then out of nowhere is like, the writing's been on the wall for that year and that year or that month or this week. It's been too many of those writings on the wall for it not to expect to go to that place where she would kill everybody with the dragons. Like that was writing on the wall from all the way. Like, and Jon knew that the whole time. Like Jon Snow, like, and he didn't do anything. So the best description of Saturn and Pluto would be, are you going to be Jon Snow, who doesn't do anything and doesn't do something before she does get on that dragon and do all that?
Right.
Damn.
That's the point that I took from that whole story, because like if I look back even in the past, like in 2012, which I'm really curious what was happening with that compression that you talk about, because like life for me then was going so incredible. I mean, it could not have been any better. It was the best year I had had. And out of nowhere came this fury that demolished things. And I could see where there had been a point in time where I could have stopped all of that. I mean, it's like there would have been the power, but because of the fear of standing up for myself, I didn't make the moves when I needed to make them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it has taught me a really huge lesson. Like if we were going to be like tutoring somebody else in life, like what would we be recommending that they do in that situation? And we better make the move that we would be recommending, that they would make if we saw our situation in somebody else. Because I think it's really easy to say, well, I need to change this, this, and this. But when it comes down to actually making the move, that's when it's tough. And that analogy with Game of Thrones, like for people that have seen it, showed so perfectly what happens when you try to be good, you try to let the goodness be good, but you don't have the action, to carry it through. Like I learned this in this past life regression that we did yesterday. We're given a chance. Each and every one of us is given a chance to make moves and to bring light into darkness, like in our own life. And so often we don't own our full, divinity and allow that to happen. And it's an experience. And there's no, it's an experience. So I think that kind of helps relieve the pressure from it too. But if we want it to be like a great experience, we do have more power than we let ourselves know.
Of course. So let's take 2012. Mm-hmm. It's actually very mind connected because That was the last Venus eclipse for the next 120 years.
When was that? What?
That was May into June, so it was June 4th, 2012, but it was the solar eclipse that was at 0 Gemini with the south node in Gemini, which was May 21st, 2012. May 20th, May 21st, right there. And then there was that couple weeks after the eclipse that Venus had already retrograded during that eclipse. And then Venus passed over the sun and we could see it with goggles.
Right.
And that won't happen for 120 years. And it only happened, Venus eclipsed it again in 2004. So that was an 8-year cycle of Venus eclipses. That won't happen again for 120 years. This is going to be the first Venus retrograde in Gemini since 1996, May and June. Okay? That won't have an eclipse. So there's a weird completion point from 96 to 2020 in this.
Wow.
Okay, now I'm blowing your mind, right? So this is where I can't reveal everything about 2020. You gotta have people show up to hear it all. There's a lot. But there is something to say here about the Venus retrograde coming with the North Node, which the last time would have been in that 96 time, where it's not eclipsing, which creates chaotic havoc with a South Node and a solar eclipse. That was the midpoint of 2012. That shifted things in a Gemini way of like, your environment's going to shift in just this radical crazy and lose your kind of mind. And Neptune was in Pisces for the first time where it was going to stay in 2012. In 2011, it went back and forth. And then in 2012, it was there. So those were the first Gemini aspects. And it was the first time I would say, well, if I would do the astrology correctly, we'd have to really look, but yeah, that there would have been a Venus retrograde in Gemini with Neptune and Pisces, and that would have been some very tumultuous times. But you have to see that cycle is going to complete. So think of 2012 to 2020 as the lobby to the 2012 Mayan calendar's new world, the lobby, and because they're not going to let you in until they have kind of, it's like, I went to a VR experience last weekend, and you have to they put you in a room first, put your clothes up, all right, put on this before they're going to let you in and give you the ground rules and stuff before they let you in and use their gear. It's So
was that stuff like a preview of 2020? Like the things that were going good at that time, or is there relevance?
Well, when you're dealing with the nodes, there's usually an opposite element. So yeah, I mean, if it went bad, but you have to remember that too, that when a Venus is retrograding during an eclipse cycle, that is tumultuous for money and relationships. It's going to create and it was a Venus retrograde eclipse to the sun. So the sun was burning out Venus in an eclipse style, okay? So that created a tumultuous money and relationship transit for everybody in a way. This time, the North Node's going to be there with Rahu, and there's going to be kind of this, I'm desperate needing the relationship and the money instead of watching it get burned by Ketu away. So it's more like this May, June is more about, because we are getting so everybody was in such excess at that time that it was like K2 and the solar eclipse and the last Venus eclipse of our lives was like taking it away. So that was actually more of a understanding on how, it's different of course, but this is going to be more of a positive experience, I feel, unless people did not make the choice during this time period where they would experience what you or I did during that time. So
these transits that have been, I think I showed you the chart that I saw the other day where it was like in 1972, 1996. I can't remember all the dates. Does that mean that since that cycle has completed, that it starts another cycle of those terrible things happening each one of those years? Or does it mean it ever gets to switch up?
Of course it always switches up. But you have to really follow the patterns through the 8-year cycles of Venus retrogrades and see what themes were happening at that time. The themes change around them. And then this is a different one because you're actually adding to the equation a long-term time system shift of a complete calendar, long count, galactic calendar reset. So we've never seen the Venus retrograde that brought the reset on to actually see it on the other side of the reset. That make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And there's no eclipse, and there's the North Node with it. And so, there is a little bit of mystery to it, but there is, when you do watch the patterns and so forth, you have to remember that, one, solar eclipses happen wherever the nodes are. So, we are going to be getting solar eclipse energy during the Venus retrograde in Gemini again. But the one that we're about to have on December 25th or 6th, wherever you're at, solar eclipses are what bring out the biggest breakups of all time.
Right.
That's what they do. They're radiation to Cancer.
Every time.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why I'm preparing people in a way of this is an eclipse on Jupiter with the South Node, and K2's understanding of when it's with Jupiter is we need to let go of all these positive ideas of the way that things are because maybe they're too grandiose or they're not because a wise man at some point has to delineate which opinions and which belief structures do not work for the ultimate positive belief structure or plan to teach in the future, right? So it's I did learn that from that professor, but I'm going to, drop that out of my, I don't think that applies here. Maybe only a little bit does, but not the whole theory or not the whole thing.
Yeah.
So when you get an eclipse on Jupiter and you get it in its fall position and you get it with the South Node, you're getting a triple poof, poof, poof of an implosion of release. You're getting a solar eclipse release. You're getting a solar eclipse on Jupiter releasing these positive elements of what you held on to for your destiny and how it should look. And then you get K2 that's just dropping the bottom from it out, completely out of karmic, time aspect. So, but what that does is it deflates the balloon enough to be filled in by maybe not your own air from your mouth, but maybe with some nitrous oxide that can let the balloon fly higher. Because maybe that the whole time that you've been believing that you're only going to get there this way, but the universe is going to pull that from you because maybe it can bring you a better thing. So it's not something to be scared of because on the other side of this, we have to remember that there's more light that's been coming in the universe in the last 8 years from 2012 because of the galactic shift that's just making darker shadows. And people are having to get used to darker shadows with more light. But it's more easier to focus on the darker the shadow with more light. At first we see the light burst, and then now we're seeing look how big that shadow is behind me, It's a lot easier, when you're by yourself in a car, and you're racing somebody and they're really far away. It's another when they're right up on your butt and then you can feel them on your back, It's almost like the shadow of so much light. It's just all on your back, but you have to see oh, that's because there's more light here. And that's also going to burn and be more reflective of our subconscious shadows too. And the stuff that's being illuminated right now is also where we get the term occult, because we're not going to be able to see all these planets because the sun is there. So they're behind there, or there's no way to see them. So it's hidden, but there's potency behind the sun with all that. All those planets are lumping up in Capricorn with the sun in Capricorn and the eclipses. And they're all so close that you can't see them. When the sun rises in the morning, all the planets are with it. And when the sun sets, all the planets are with it. So the sun goes down underneath when you're at night and is in China when you're in America. And guess what? You look up at night, there's no planets. There's going to be no planets in the sky at night. None. Because you can't see Uranus.
How long will that last?
You'll be able to see Venus only for an evening star, so right when it gets to twilight, and then that's it. gosh, I'd have to do some math, but it's going to be a minute. Because Venus is the only one moving forward, and then Saturn and Pluto take forever, and the sun's got to go through Saturn and Pluto too, which is on January 12th, and then the sun's going to have to go far enough away for at least, I would say, about a week before Saturn and Pluto will rise in the morning. And that's going to be where the weirdness feels, is from like January 12th through like the 20th until Aquarius, is Saturn and Pluto will be rising in the morning. That's how you're going to wake up in the morning, like, what the, and then the sun comes up, you know?
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's a little cryptic, but it's a little fun. But that's how you can tell in your astrology chart the kind of how somebody is. If they have Pluto rising in the morning and the sun is not rising, like there's a hidden dark element to that person. If they have the sun rising in the if they have the sun rising in the morning in Leo, when they're Leo rising and it's with Venus, like, yeah, of course you can get the Leo king. You know, so like those are basic astrology, ancient tools. And that's the problem with CoStar and all these apps for astrology now, or patterners. They're not teaching those people any of that. They're basing everything off of like, oh, I see, because I have Mars in this is how I am. It's like, well, where is that on the chart? Where is that on the horizon line? Is it like, how is it rising? What do you have rising? You know, how is it aspected? How is it done? You know, like these are really astrology tools that come into play, and even predictable elements that need to be looked at. Because there is something to say that after January 12th, that is not only a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, but the sun is conjuncting all of them. And you have to realize that every day following that for that month, Saturn and Pluto are going to rise every morning. And then the sun will pop up. And that's going to feel weird.
What would you suggest, like for people that are making decisions right now regarding relationships, like so that they don't implode an entire life? Like, are there some people that it needs to be more like strategic or more, or is it just like if you've got a, you know, because what I'm noticing is like people are like, oh my God, I have to make a move. Boom. Like I'm going to just like jump out of this right now. And then they're left in a quandary of how they're going to support themselves, how they're going to, you know, like, do you have suggestions for situations like that?
I mean, this is where I'm kind of pulling out the emergency handbook, because it's been, the writing on the wall has been for so long, that this is like kind of like the ultimate conscious, like, test for some, like you know, there were people like me saying it for a long time and put it in a magazine a year ago to prepare people. Right. So that's where it's like, okay, I've got emergency handbook. Like, do you want to take the parachute, or do you want to take, you know,
just see if the plane lands itself?
Yeah. Like in the water. Like let's do a United. What was that, 93 or whatever in the Hudson Bay?
The Sully was the movie, right?
Yeah. Like let's try and land you in the Hudson River.
That's what I think. It's about,
you know what I mean?
Like having the realization.
But the opposite of not doing anything about it too is there's no Hudson River. Right. There's no airport to land in. Right. Now it's like, good luck.
I think it's important to open the conversations.
Yeah, I don't think every relationship's meant to implode or be broken up. Right. But it's the ones that the writing's on the wall, and especially I think it's for people who have a purpose, people who know that they're here to collab with people that are exactly in the same vibration as themselves to do better for this earth together and create a better earth together and a better life and a better love together, instead of this being kind of the old way of just because we're in a relationship and we support one another monetarily and support-wise, but we really are not. It's almost like it's become robotic.
That's what I've been paying attention to, is like, you know, because so often we think of relationships as just your lover. And it's like, we've had conversations like this too, where it's about like really looking closely at the relationships that you have with even your own self, your self relationship with humanity, like how you interact with other human beings, you know, how you do interact with your children, where you see the faults that are, within yourself. Like, what about the relationship with yourself? The things that you haven't recognized within yourself that need like obvious work. And I think those things are just as potent for people to be realizing, is that, like the relationship that they're in with their humanity or their world is such a reflection of what they are needing to be working on in self too.
Yeah, and it feels like a lot of people think of it like a relationship is mandatory, but that a relationship with yourself is optional. And it's like, no. It was the exact opposite. Like, if you want, you have to have that relationship with yourself that way that you can be a good part of a relationship. Because even if you want to, even with the best intentions, if you don't have self-love, then you'll be bringing that into the relationship. Yeah. And, inevitability will always, bring you to the same result that way.
Yeah. But I think that that's also a good thing that people are using the spiritual community of like, okay, so this really was messed up, so that means I have something wrong with me.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, these transits are actually just showing you the longest 30-plus year cycle since 82 of 83 of just like, no, that's not the kind of person to align with.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to work on yourself as much as like, it's okay to just throw in that there are incompatibilities in mathematical equations for relationships.
It also means that maybe there is something wrong if you would stick with it. Like if you don't
exactly. Instead of the whole fact that it didn't work, it's more that you continue to stay.
Right.
And why is that? And then, but what it's doing is it's blocking people from then opening to relationships, saying there's something wrong with me, or, it's like, this is where it's just like, hey, at the end of the day, like Luke Skywalker hangs out with, whatever, like he's on the rebel side. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that his father turns into Darth Vader. Like, there's just like, there's sides that people go on.
And it was Luke deciding to step into true alignment that led Vader and inspired Vader to finally step into his true alignment.
Right.
Because when Luke was trying to be a Jedi or was considering stepping over to the dark side, it's like Darth Vader was exactly the same. But it's like there's this inspiration when you step into alignment that other people recognize like it's possible.
Right. And so there's the to kind of close this convo and to close tonight about the relationship thing is like, it might just come to the point to where it's like it's done, but you don't know what to do, but it's at least internally, vibrationally, it has completely died. Right? So It's kind of like, now you're going to be dealing with a long-term shoveling out of that, where it would have been a lot easier, and so you have to find ways. But we're going to be in a weird world with Saturn and Pluto that is very restrictive, so you're going to have to like take some risks too. But you're going to have to be strategic about them. And there's still opportunity right now.
Right.
But it's down to the wire a little bit, and that's why the Venus is being squished in between the 2-degree separation of Saturn and Pluto on the full moon exactly, and the full moon exactly quincunxes Venus, Saturn, Pluto, or Saturn, Venus, Pluto. So there is something to say about that you can figure this one out, and that you can trust with your Jupiter trine Uranus this week that actually the right connections will come together for you that you need. And I think that this is about throwing away the old understandings of how things should look or whatever. But like, if something's dead and it doesn't work, like there is a little bit of this wild, unpredictable magic that could bring all the pieces together to figure it out really quick for you.
Right.
Really fast. And everything, even maybe if it's another partner that just out of nowhere goes, and then combining forces and skills to save the world, or who knows. That's the Uranus-Jupiter trine that's coming this week. But it's like, do you use the gift of that, or do you fall away and say I'm only good enough for coal, and then start saying I'm a horrible person? And guilt is the hardest thing that Saturn and Pluto taught in Libra that's closing right now, is the guilt of feeling like you were a bad person because it didn't work out.
That's the very lowest form of frequency we can carry, guilt and shame. And operating in that space, we don't thrive. My counselor told me when I was getting ready when I found out I was getting a divorce, she said, let me just ask you a question. When was the time that you knew, how many years ago did you know that your marriage was over? And when I sat there and thought about it, it was like, oh my God, like it had been years that I knew, like, that initial thought. And I think that's where, like now for people when they're going through, maybe I should make a move. If like there's been an identification in your mind for years, you can identify a timeline that you've known, then that's when I think you could safely do something without imploding your world. Where it would actually be.
And it always is, when you actually do make the move, not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
In any breakup.
Right.
It's always the build up to the breakup that you go into more of a chaotic space. And do you want to stamp, because I look at planets coming together as a stamp, do you want to stamp or brand yourself in that chaotic energy of Saturn and Pluto that is a brander of concrete, an ironclad, or not be in the chaotic energy? Because the truth is that life is pretty simple. It looks a lot bigger. The illusion of Capricorn with South Node is that, that the world is just not looking good. But, it's more like that you're not in alignment. Like when you're in alignment, it's fine.
Right.
All you're seeing are blocks when it's like you're not in alignment.
That's why I'm so excited about this upcoming event.
Yeah.
Like, it's not only is it going to be an awesome opportunity for everyone to create art, to come do that here in the studio, to see a bunch of incredible art from Kim Tabe, to hear music and all these different things that essentially are opportunities to kind of like give ourselves a lot of different stimuli for getting ourselves back into center and then doing something with that, because it's never something that just happens to you. You can't just go to an event, have some really cool stuff happen, and then you're fixed or anything like that. It's like it always requires that work. And I'm giving a talk called Getting Back to Alignment, It's Not Too Late to Be Happy. And the entire talk, the premise of it essentially is the argument that you can step into alignment no matter how impossible it feels, and that the amount of bliss and self-love energy that you'll be able to participate in will be the most magical experience of your life. Like it's an indescribable feeling. It just couldn't be better. And now's the time to like get back in it.
I'm really excited. Have you ever met Dr. Steven Schwartz?
No.
Jackson, I got to meet him. Was it last week?
Yeah.
But he's going to be here also. And there's some stuff I haven't even been able to fill you in on, but he's going to be doing a talk on frequency. Like it's just going to be a shorter talk. And then he's going to give a sound bath for the audience. And so, anybody that's watching it will have
right. Very nice.
like the opportunity to fill that too.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun night. I mean, we have a lot of things in
and
store
Craig's
here.
been doing
Oh my
Shout out
God.
to Craig. Craig, oh my God, he killed it today.
Like honestly, there's not even words for it. He's a beast. I mean, we started at, I don't even remember what time we started. He started, and he didn't stop. Like carrying stuff around, and he's a real handyman, ladies.
Yeah, he's doing a lot more though. He's also running this show.
He does everything.
There's a lot going on right now, and the whole community, the whole high vibe community is really pulling.
Yeah.
In their respected areas that are all integrating it all, and that's really what a collective is like. Right. Everybody's pulling in their way.
We're excited too because Tamara's flying in, and I've never met her in person.
Oh, she's amazing. Her vibration that you see on camera on High Vibe is the same in person, even more better. Like it's like whoa.
I'm really
glows.
Excited for that.
She's like a glow bug. Yeah. Not a bug, but a glow.
She's got a very angelic energy about her.
Yeah, that's actually what it is. Yeah, she actually is. She's like a walking angel. That's
why she's so comfortable with her angelic messages. Like it's
and I'm going to be going around doing some hosting, talking to people around the events, interviewing some peeps, of course, helping Kim display her art and getting people real riled up about it. because her art will be for sale too for people out there that are watching.
That is going to be a first for Kim.
Yeah, she's brought all of her stuff here.
Yeah.
Her whole collection.
There's a whole story that you guys will hear about how she started with one piece and then moved on.
Yeah.
But seriously, get them now, like before she's like, incredibly world renowned. Like, get them now while you still can get your hands on them before they become worth millions of dollars. Seriously. They're
Very
amazing.
true.
They're so good.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful to this, and I think that there's a lot about collective this week with Jupiter trine Uranus, and it's like, hello, if you do got to make hard moves in your life, and this is about work. Venus and Saturn is not a fun energy this week, but it's transformative with Pluto by doing what might not, for us, the work is like, we're like having to go to the store and get stuff and build stuff, and it's stressful, but there's a reward. So for people that are not stepping into any kind of work, whether maybe it's not physical labor and creating an event, but maybe it's like you have an event of a relationship or a project that you're not doing anything about, it's going to feel worse than just being like, I don't have the energy or I don't want to, than to not get the reward and not see anything done, as we are never going to see this alignment in our lives again. And this is all during this full moon. So
I would just like to remind everybody, like for my final thoughts.
Yeah, please.
We're supported more than we know in all of this. Like we are adored, by so many people that we don't even realize a lot of times in life. And it's not just people, like there's a higher energy source that is supportive of humanity and wants us to thrive. And I think it's really important to remember that in our tough times. If you can just like close your eyes and realize that like in this moment, the capability to take a breath and to tap into your own, sovereignty, the remembrance of who you are really helps lead through energies like this. And know that you're not alone in the crazy feelings. I mean, there are a lot of people that are feeling stressed out and feeling that pressure, so you're not weird if you're feeling it, and honor yourself in that. Don't beat yourself up for the fact that you are letting out emotion or that you suddenly break out in tears. Just honor the process of it and keep on taking the baby steps. And that's how we make it through. Baby step.
Yeah.
Baby step. Another baby step.
Last thoughts, Jax?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing right now, I mean, we've been getting Page of Cups like 400 times in the last 2 weeks, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's crystal clear that now's the time to express anything you still have on your chest. Like anything that is still weighing you down, anything that's churning around in your stomach, anything that you've desperately wanted to say it now. Like, just give yourself that honesty, because the illusion is always that it's going to create so much calamity, like you were saying earlier, that it's going to just destroy your entire life if something happens in that relationship or that friendship even, or even a connection with someone in your family. But it does not, because even if they live up to your expectation and they react horribly, you've given yourself actual love. Because you expressed your point as if it matters. Like you lived a life where you spoke your truth. And that means everything. It puts you in alignment with the universe. It puts you in alignment with God. It puts you in alignment with your truest self and your actual things that you really want from this life. So if you ever feel confused right now, like, what do I want from life? What do I want to do for a living? It's like, be honest about things that are seemingly irrelevant to that, and you will just stumble right into it.
I love that.
Good advice.
And it will create more security in yourself, because without that security in yourself, then it's hard to go create and manifest and have the things you want in your life. That's why the Queen of Cups, she feels so together, and she feels like finally you see a cup really like nurturing and feeling and nurturing herself. And then the King of Cups, who just, he's confident in the decisions he makes, even if it's an emotionally difficult one, like, oh, that's what needs to be done. So, okay. And I would say that my final message here is that I think it's ironic, because today is the first day that YouTube, December 10th, is going to start, if they do not find you commercially viable, pull you off. So I'm taking this from a Saturn-Pluto perspective in Capricorn, like, okay, a lot of people are like, okay, it's censorship. There's definitely one end of the coin to that. Then there's the other coin of like, if you're a business owner and the amount of content that is put on YouTube every day or every hour is the amount of, I forgot how many months or years or whatever, an hour or a minute, like, and imagine that's been going on since 2006 when they were purchased by Google. So like there comes a point to where it's like, if you're not either paying or it's not making you money, like we're kind of just like, we can just like kind of just say, no, we're not storing your data anymore. We don't have to play it anymore. So there's that two sides of the coins where, yeah, maybe underneath they use that expression to censor. But I just want to let people know that if you experience something, not like maybe literally in your life, maybe you follow a spiritual channel and you're going to see it disappear here in the next month because that new law or regulation of YouTube starts today. In your life, if something comes like that, you're like, oh gosh, like what? Like the example is like, if you're not commercially viable, meaning like you're not making money for YouTube, right? Which is actually very hard. Once you're over 10,000 subscribers and once you have enough traction, then it's like, oh, okay, you're making money for YouTube, right? So there's in your own life, like if something like that happens, you're like, gosh, I'm not at this level and that this got pulled from me in some sort of way. It's like, there are other options out there that you're going to have to maybe take a minute to look at, but they're going to be there and they were set up there by God in beautiful ways, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we set up High Vibe was like, we know there'll be a bunch of spiritual people that are going to need a place to call home and get the message out.
We saw what happened on YouTube the other night when you had to go live on the app.
Right.
Like, thank God we did have that venue to be able to push it right then.
Right. So, yeah, it's just like there's other high vibes portals out there in any situation of your life.
Right.
For whatever it is. And to not be afraid, but it might just take a minute of courage and it might feel malefic or dark, but you kind of have to walk through it just a tad bit and not be afraid and you'll end up in the right place. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, it's by not doing anything and just sitting there and then expecting it to just drop in your lap. Capricorn is not a drop in the lap kind of energy. Like you have to take an elevator and you have to have the key to get the elevator and you have to go get the key to get the, and the way to get your key is you got to, there's steps.
Yeah.
So it's not scary if you actually understand it from the full understanding of it all. Anyway, it was a great talk. I love both of you, and we're all looking forward to seeing all you here at the studios if you're going to make it. If not, watching the live, and of course being a part of highvibe.tv for all the awesome content. And being a subscriber, Deep Astrology, of course, in full entirely is already up, and you already missed the live. But of course, I do the replay with half of it, of course, is video and audio, and then the other half is audio. But you can subscribe now at highvibe.tv to always have Deep Astrology in its full entirety and form, and all the other awesome horoscopes and Jack's horoscopes and Jack's videos and so many other people. Thanks so much for all the support. Truly appreciate it. And tomorrow, Craig and I, so if you're watching on Wednesday at 1:30 p.m., we are doing Full Disclosure, our show. So make sure you send your questions that we will answer at hvfulldisclosure@gmail.com. Thanks so much for all your support. Truly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next After Dark.
Bye.